I don't know if you all remember this, the battle for Seattle or not, but I think Democrats generally take the position of we hate free trade, and the best thing we could do is get out of the WTO and dismantle this organization. That's sort of the visceral reaction. At least that was a little bit my reaction when I saw everybody throwing chairs through windows, and I was, in some weird level, cheering them on. But I thought we have to have a more sophisticated way to address the free trade issues, because we're really getting eviscerated on a variety of issues. And I could detail those to you ad nauseum, but really quickly on the environment, there was the Mexican tuna case where we had laws that said if you drown tuna or you drown dolphins while you were fishing for tuna, that tuna couldn't be sold in the United States. That was declared an illegal trade barrier, and we had to allow in tuna that was basically processed or produced in the process of killing dolphins. There's all sorts of other issues. California tried to pass a gasoline, some sort of gasoline additive which would make the air clear. That again was, Venezuela challenged it. That was declared illegal under the WTO, and we had to change that. You add to that what I consider some really effective use of the WTO by the right wing to really destroy the unions in this country, at least the big unions, the auto workers. And I thought there's got to be some different sort of things we can do. So I ended up going to school in Bern, Switzerland, which trains a majority of the sort of diplomats for who go and work at the WTO or go back to their country and help develop positions. And so I sat in these rooms, and I've been doing this for 4 years. I'm doing it at a very slow pace. I go back for a couple weeks, come back here, I go back and forth. But in that process, I have learned some very interesting things about the WTO. So probably the leading liberal position, I think, or progressive position we can get is that universal health care coverage is absolutely necessary to make us competitive in the world. And the reason why that is that you have universal health care coverage in Japan and you have universal health care coverage in Europe, and we just can't produce the sort of high-end products unless we take that burden off of business. Why is that such a liberal position and so important? Because if you ever listen to Rush Limbaugh or you listen to any of these right-wing people talking on the radio, they say, well, this is socialism, we're trying to create more big government. I think we can go to the American people and say, listen, look at our trade deficit. It's absolutely enormous. And how are we going to begin to turn that around? How do we make it so that our products are more competitive? How do we make it so our cars are more competitive? To do that, we've got to take the burden off of the companies. And the only way we can do that is by providing universal health care coverage. That's the only way labor is going to be able to give up that sort of bargaining tool. And we all know that $1,500 to $2,000 of every car that's produced in the country goes to health care or paying those sort of benefits. So the great thing about this argument is we get to take the argument around and use it as a pro-business, as a progressive business policy, as opposed to sounding like we want to expand big government. This is, we need to be competitive in the world, and we can't be competitive in the world unless we get universal health care coverage. And I think that's pretty much a fact. I think, it's just who's going to pay the bottom line. Is it companies that are going to have to absorb that, or are we going to have our government do that? And by switching who pays for that, we switch the competitiveness or the price of the products, which makes them more competitive in the global market. So I think that's probably the biggest sort of issue, although I could go on and on about these. A secondary issue that's coupled with that is, how do you get to the WTO anyway? The WTO, and a lot of you may say, well, I still don't really like the WTO. What is the WTO supposed to do? Well, the idea is if countries trade with each other, take the United States, for example. We don't have barriers when you take something from here to Kansas. You don't have to pay a tariff at the border. You don't have to pay a tariff at the border when you're going to California. The idea is that the world would work that way, California produces oranges better than Colorado, so, you know, we get oranges from California, we produce this here, everybody is producing what they produce the best. We all have rising living standards and we live much better. That's the idea behind the WTO. And furthermore, international trade keeps us from killing each other. The WTO is part of what was known as the Bretton Woods institutions, which was the belief that World War II was caused by paying reparation payments by Germany to France, that incited a lot of anger and the collapse of the German economy. And secondly, we had the Smoot-Hawley tariff against the Japanese to try to control the yellow peril. And so we had tried to isolate them by using tariffs. So the whole world sort of erupted in the Depression into raising tariffs. And because of that, we had no reason not to begin killing each other. So in that sense, the WTO is really a great organization. And furthermore, just to sound like a true Democrat, we believe in government. We believe government can help. And the WTO is world government. The issue is, how do we get a grip on it so that it's helping us and not helping our opponents? So another issue that we need to really address is that the WTO treaty was written with this idea of businesses or corporations somehow had an allegiance to a country. So GM was ours, GE was ours, Toyota was the Japanese, BMW was the Germans. But the reality is, and they were supposed to protect all of our interests. In fact, under the treaty, to bring a complaint to the WTO, to begin to say something is unfair, your domestic industry has to bring that complaint. So what is domestic industry? Well, domestic industry has been defined by us to be just these corporations. Well, being a conspiratorial theorist that I am, I have to wonder whether the head of GM is really that interested in preserving the union, when in fact Toyota and Honda don't have these unions in the United States.